Hey everybody, welcome back. So in today's tutorial, we're going to talk about indexing. And indexing is really important because in data science, what we're doing is, we're reading data in, cleaning it, transforming it, analyzing, and then, having some way of communicating the results, right? And so in that process, we have to have a systematic way of addressing or accessing the data that we put in the different containers. So remember in data structures, we talked about vectors, we talked about data frames, we talked about lists, and each of those are a different type of container in which we can put stuff in, and we have to have a systematic way to be able to address what is in those containers, and that's what indexing is. And so we're going to talk about that. And so let's start back in the most easy or the simple concept that we have, where we just have hello world and putting that into just an object and printing that, right? And so when we print that, we just whatever is in in this object is going to be printed. And so we don't need to tell it specifically which location it is, because there's only one location. So now let's take the example of the my data frame that we have from the data structure, which has two variables and three rows. And so what if we just want to access only the rows? And so we can do that by using these brackets, right? And so the inside is going to be the rows, which rows, and the outside is going to be the columns. And then a way that you can remember this is, for example, columns are in the outside. So like in the Colosseum, right? You have columns on the outside, and then you have the rows are on the inside. And so this is a way that you can remember how to access rows and columns of a data frame. And so rows are going to be on the inside and columns on the outside. So when we just print just the rows, we see here that A, right, is the first row of the first column, and then 1 is the first row of the second column. And then the same thing, we can use this colon symbol here to print 1 through 2. So for example here, when we print that, we see that we get both variables, but we get only 2 rows. And we do that because we specified that with this here. And by leaving this blank here, that means all the columns. So all the columns in the data frame are going to be printed. So now let's move on to when we just specify just the columns and not the rows. And so what we see here is we're going to get something a little bit different. So right, what we see here is that when we selected only the first column, we no longer get what we observed here that looks like a spreadsheet, right? It's the data frame structure. What we get this is what looks like a row, but really this is a column. But because we only specified one column, it turned it into a vector. And so in a vector, you don't have column names, you just have the items that are in each of the positions. And so so for example, now let's print both of the columns. So we see here now that when we print both of the columns, we get that structure back. Remember before when we just printed the first column, well, we have this what printed here was what looks like a vector, but and it is, but what it really is a column. But because we only printed one, it looks like this. But when we select both of them, like we did with the rows, now we see that here that we have all the information from both the columns. So remember, columns on the outside, rows on the inside. I can't tell you how many times I forgot that. All right, so what we're going to do here, to just wrap this up really quick, we are going to see how to put new stuff in the data frame. And so for here, when we see here, we only have 2 columns, 3 rows. Now, what if we want to add more stuff to it? Well, we can do that by specifying in the place for the third variable, put this stuff in. Remember, we use the concatenate function, and then we specify the individual items to put inside. So when we do that, oh, we got an error. And what was the error? Well, if we look back at this, we see that the data frame has only 3 items, has 3 rows. But what we're trying to put in here is we're trying to put 4. That's why we get the error. Remember we talked about in data structures how we said that each row has to have not only the same type of item, but the same number. And so if we just remove the G and we bring it back to 3, let's make this look pretty. We do that. We see that now we have a new variable called v3. v3 was assigned because we didn't specify what to call the column, and we have the three items that we put in it, right? And so we can do that again. We can do with 4. So it would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. So let's put that into 4. And so we'll see here, it should be V4. It is. All right, guys, that's all I have for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, what we're going to be talking about is how to modify the names of these columns. All right, I'll see you then.